We'll go ahead and get started. And Loretta will be manning the participant list. So if you see anyone who's potentially making problems, because sometimes we get that on the evening sessions, please flag it for her or for Michael, and we can make sure that we keep a civil meeting where everyone can engage respectfully. I'm going to go ahead and very quickly do some top line items, and then we'll introduce our council members present and then our staff present before we go over kind of the updates that we do every time. So greetings everyone, and welcome to the December listening sessions for the California Truth and Healing Council. We have general listening sessions this week, with one on Monday from 1 to 2:30 and this evening from 6 to 7:30 p.m. And we will not have a council business meeting this month. We anticipate that the next virtual business meeting of the council will take place in late January. And for those of you who are trying to get that on your calendars, we are tentatively looking at Friday, January 28th. Loretta?
I was just going to say the 28th because I didn't know if you had it written down.
Great. The 28th, and that will be similar to the other business meetings where they start in the afternoon, and we'll be having updates for the council and having any votes on anything that needs to move forward. My name is Christina Snyder, and I'm a member of the Dry Creek Rancheria Band of Pomo Indians and the tribal advisor for Governor Gavin Newsom. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the land I'm joining you from is the homelands of the Miwok and Nisenan peoples. I'm now going to briefly walk through some of the logistics for today's session. First, we are recording this session, and it's available for public participation via Zoom and dial-in. The recording and summary notes will be available on the CTHC landing page and the blog when they're ready. For those interested in following the council, ongoing updates, including listening session recordings and the listening session summary documents, are available at the California Truth and Healing Council updates blog at catruthandhealing.com. You can also get updates for events by following the Governor's Office of the Tribal Advisor on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Additional details, including meeting dates, agendas, and background information, are available at tribalaffairs.ca.gov/CTHC. If you've not already done so, we'd appreciate if you could update your name to let us know who you are. And as we get into the discussion portion of today's session, we'd appreciate if those who are comfortable could go on camera. We're going to start with brief introductions of those of you who have joined us, and then as always, we'll dive into a quick overview to get everyone up to speed on recent updates, and then we'll go into the listening and discussion portion of today's convening. If you would like to speak at any point, you can raise your hand and I'll call on you. And if you're using the Zoom app, you should be able to raise your hand using the app controls, but can also use Alt-Y in Windows or Option-Y on Mac to raise or lower your hand. If you've dialed in, you should be able to raise your hand by pressing *9. You can also email written comments to info@catruthandhealing.com at your convenience. Now, before we begin, I'd like to remind participants that all of our council members, council staff, and all of you are participants in this effort toward collective healing. So I ask that you engage with the council, our office, and each other with respect and with your whole heart and a healing mindset. Many of us doing this work are navigating systems that were not built for us to make change that was never contemplated. This in itself takes an enormous amount of patience and emotional integrity, and we're all doing our best to make strides in these spaces. So thank you again for joining us. And now we'll have the council members present introduce themselves first. If you'd like to, I see Council Member Elliott Santos, Council Member Myers, and Council Member Bojorquez on.
Good evening. My name is Angela Elliott Santos, and I'm the chairwoman of the Manzanita Band of the Kumeyaay Nation.
Ayokwi Naknao Frankie Myers. I am the vice chairman for the Yurok tribe and the council member for the North.
Mishi Sorpeto, Inkate, Karak Isaac. Good evening. I'm Isaac Bojorquez, chairman for the Kutaruk Band of Baloney Costanoan Indians of the Coastal Rancheria. Thank you for joining. Sorry, I have my camera off. I'm getting my kids squared away with dinner right now at the moment.
Great, thank you all. And as we progress through the meeting, feel free to jump in if you have any questions for the group or have any discussion items. Loretta, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Loretta Miranda. I am Serrano and Cupeño from the Morongo Band of Mission Indians. I serve as Chief Deputy Tribal Advisor and Special Counsel for the Governor's Office, and I'm happy to be here.
And we've also got Michael Park on from our office, and he has been putting some helpful links in the chat and is who you should contact if you'd like to set up a meeting with our office or with the council. With that, if any participants would like to introduce themselves to the group at this time, we'd love to hear from you. And if you have any thoughts or anything you brought with you that you'd like to share with the group, please feel free to do so at this time before we go into the general overview and updates. And is it Gemel? Please feel free to unmute.
Hi, my name is Victoria Gimmel. I'm Pitt River, Wintun, Yana, and Athabascan, and just here to listen in and grateful we have this forum. So thank you.
Thank you. And Dee Dee, would you like to unmute your line?
Mishi Shorpeto, Kanapai Didi Manzanares Ibarra, Ka Rumshanama, Duratai Olone. My name is Didi Manzanares Ibarra. I'm the tribal chairwoman of Rumshanama Duratai Olone, and I'm coming to you tonight from the land of the Serrano people. And I'm happy to be here again, and thankful to have been here throughout this year. And hopefully we look towards another new year and a better year for us for next year. And thank you to everyone for welcoming me here into this circle.
Welcome. And Robert, would you like to say a few words?
You know me, of course. I just love having dinner with you, Christina. Anyway, I'm Robert Levi. I'm the member of the Torres Martinez Desert Kuya Indians. I'm just the education correspondent for everybody. We just had a meeting coming out of the California Department of Education about Indian students in the classroom, geared toward those non-Indian teachers who may have students, Indian students in the classroom for the time being. And then also, I have that I didn't get the chance to get in on Monday when I had lunch with Christina, was that we did have a luncheon last 2 Fridays ago that Assemblyman Ramos put together, and we talked about the occurrence that happened at North High School and what we were trying to get done about how we were going to fix that. They had a panel discussion, and mostly people from the California Indian Nations College were on that panel. And then also my wife kind of talking through the California Teachers Association, American Indian Alaska Native Caucus. Some ideas came across, obviously working with the local tribes, working with Agua Caliente, Morongo, Torres Martinez, Saboba, San Manuel, and Pachanga. And then just trying to reemphasize the idea of Assembly Bill 1554 about California Indian history and the social studies history framework that we're trying to get recognized coming up in January, I believe, to get it through the Assembly. And if you want, there were 2 articles, or not articles, but petitions that Assemblymember Ramos put through. One was to petition the State Assembly to back AB 1554, and then also for the California Teachers Association to endorse AB 1554. So again, if we get those 2 organizations to help us out, we should have very little problem or issues with AB 1554. So far that's where we're headed, and again, looking forward to more adventures with Assemblymember Ramos. That was pretty much it. I can't think of anything else right now. But anyway, thank you so much, and we look forward to hearing everybody discuss what we're trying to do in terms of truth and healing. Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Loretta.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to introduce themselves to the group at this time? Bradley? And you're muted right now.
I think I got it right there. Hey, Chumi Sunwee. My name is Radley Davis. I'm enrolled with Pit River Tribe. I'm Ilnawi. And on my father's side, also on my father's side, I'm Maidu from Genesee Valley, Taylorsville area, and also Miwok from down Calaveras County area, Sheep Ranch, Rancherias, where my grandma, Lippy Davis, is from. And then on my mom's side, I'm Winnemem Wintu from up here in Redding, Shasta County, California is where I'm at right now. I mentioned this, got on this call, got a call from one of our community members to jump on the call, and you had just mentioned what's going on. Very briefly, I want to get on to say our community, part of our community is going through a trauma right now, being traumatized by a developer that's proposing to the city of Redding to build, and also that would impact tribal cultural resources, villages and burials. And the city, is not involving the Wintu people at all in this. They're not involving the citizenry of City of Redding involved in this, reviewing this project. It's an unsolicited proposal by a developer to develop and actually buy public land, turn into surplus property. They want to use the new housing bill from the governor to acquire this property. So no one really knows, they don't have a plan, but we just know that the city of Redding's been meeting, and because of the advocacy of the people and the tribal people, the Wintu people especially, going to those meetings and voicing that why isn't there CEQA involved? Why aren't the tribes being notified? Why, don't you know there's tribal cultural resources there along the river? It's a riverfront property, which involves Turtle Bay Museum, McConnell Foundation, which is going to put up $1 million, and then the two developers. So it's major entities we're familiar with, but we're just really hit by it. And I want to just let you know that. And I think with better bulleted information, I'd be very happy to send your circle some bulleted information about our concerns up here. It relates to this title of your circle because of the continuous trauma that we're going through and just not being listened to, not being heard. Even though the city of Redding has acknowledged the land, has done proclamations, there's things that have been acknowledged, but it's not continuing. So they just need to have some type of native voice all the time on there. So maybe there's a way you could help our community up here or not. I don't know, but I really like the title, and I will, when we get off, I'm going to learn more about what you do, because I know that we've been impacted by all we're all going through from, up here, the majority of the Wintu people aren't federally recognized. It's my mom, the Winnemem people, the Wintu tribe of Northern California. They're not federally recognized. So it's another obstacle that, our people got to go through up here. But anyway, but it's an issue that's going on about protecting tribal cultural resources, village site and burials. And perhaps, I'm sharing that. Maybe I could get some direction or ideas from your talk and about this healing, this real stuff that's happening, continuing to happen to us. And where do we go to get help in this area? How do we advise our tribal leaders that's in this area? But I'm a concerned person. I have inherent rights as a Winnemem Wintu to protect the land and the resources. So I'm just very concerned about it. And so I'm on here for those ulterior motives, but also I want to enjoy listening to what you're going to present tonight. But thank you for giving me time to introduce myself.
Thank you. We appreciate it. And what I'd like to do is, Michael, can you send Radley the info at Tribal Affairs email so that we can connect directly? Because I think this is something that we can connect you with the Native American Heritage Commission on. And if it's not quite under their purview, then we can also take a look at it as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to introduce themselves to the group at this time or have anything they'd like to share with the group before we get into updates? Councilmember Harper has joined us.
Thank you, Christina. I'm Joan Harper. I'm from the northern region. I'm Pomo and Coast Miwok, and I just want to say Open Mikantoish, welcome everyone, and thank you for being here this evening. I'm very eager to hear what people have to say. Thank you.
Good evening, Christina. Hauka Mahanmanwaya. My name is John Eagle Spirit Elliott. I'm from the Manzanita Band of the Kumeyaay Nation. I'm Chairwoman Elliott Santos's brother. Hi, I'm just here to support her work and the work that really does need to be done all throughout the state. I feel for the people up in Redding. We've had a lot of issues the same way down here along the border wall, and a lot of other projects that are going on. We're just trying to save our sacred sites and the bones of our ancestors, just like all of us are. So just happy to be here and participate.
Thank you and welcome. Would anyone else like to introduce themselves to the group at this time? Flag anything on the front end before we go into updates? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I now have 3 screens, so let's see if this works. Okay.
You're good.
You're seeing the right one?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So before we go into the updates, as always with all of the convenings, we're going to go over the council meeting principles, which were adopted by the council in order to create a safe space for everyone to share and feel welcome, and hopefully to dispel or help people think through what they're going to say in these meetings in order to create and keep that space. So in order to create a space where participants feel welcomed, respected, and able to speak comfortably, we'll uphold the following principles in all convenings of the council. We ask that all participants, which includes council members, authorized representatives, staff, moderators, and the public, work toward the sharing in their stewardship. If you are a participant in a convening of the council, we ask that you engage in the work of the council and with others in an open and respectful way. Engage in behaviors that will make others feel welcome. Take care of your emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical well-being, and seek support as you need it. Respectful engagement. This means to affirm the person, but critique the ideas. Provide feedback constructively and with the intent for mutual growth and healing, and welcome feedback and challenges to your opinions. One of the things I want to flag about this bullet point is that it's going to be challenging in some spaces to separate the person from the idea, the opinion, the area of discussion, because a lot of this is so personal to the participants in this process. So we ask that as you work through these ideas and push back on different ideas or different viewpoints, that you are mindful of the fact that a lot of this is very central to folks' identities. And so can feel like a personal attack, even if the attack, or even if the conversation is just about, the concept of something. So, I mean, in general, I think we would just prefer that you be careful about how you push back on things, but also welcome those kind of discussions so that we can get to some good stuff out of this group. Avoid contributing to assumptions or generalizations about tribes, tribal communities, or other groups. Do not ask individuals to speak for their perceived group. Speak only for yourself. And offer participants the benefit of the doubt. Spirited discussions are expected on these topics. See this as a sign that folks are engaged and care, and remember to be respectful as you speak, read, and listen. Honor confidentiality. Do not share others' experiences or information without permission. So in the context of this work, we're really also talking about people will share personal narratives, share personal family stories that they may have never told anybody else before. And unless they have created an understanding with you that you can use that information in the context of wherever you would like to use it, we prefer that you err on the side of honoring that as a confidential piece of information until there's express consent given by the party sharing. We want people to feel like they are safe to share their own narratives and their own stories in this space without feeling like it's been an extractive experience, or like the stories are taken and then the person is still there, and that was something that was so core to their identity that there's now a feeling of bereft. So we just ask that you be respectful in this space. Assume that you have relative privileges and both explicit and implicit biases. Know that others may or may not have had similar opportunities, experiences, and background as you. Recognize that their contributions are equally valuable. For those from dominant identity groups, refrain from contributions that prioritize dominant experiences over those who have been marginalized. Welcoming behavior. Make behavioral adjustments for virtual communication. If you wouldn't say something to someone's face, refrain from saying it virtually by voice or text. Know that use of strong language, capital letters, and exclamation marks can easily be misinterpreted online as unwelcome yelling or aggressive behavior. Remember that tone does not carry via text. People might not realize that you're joking or being sarcastic. And leave space for others to engage and express comments and ideas if you've spoken recently, by letting people finish their thoughts before adding new ones. Personal well-being. Take steps to ensure your physical comfort. Some examples in virtual meetings include shifting your sitting and standing position often, taking a purposeful deep breath regularly, raising your eyes to look beyond the screen or sit back from the computer when possible to relieve eye strain. Keep a glass of water nearby and take sips throughout sessions, and please consider physically leaving the computer during breaks. Participate as you are able to and adjust your presence as needed, whether that's turning off video or stepping away entirely. It's not expected that all participants will or should be present for the entirety of the council's work. We know and support that you will take time to eat, take care of your families and pets, but be aware that virtual convenings will be recorded and available to the public. And then set up supportive resources such as food, water, ergonomics, and privacy while offloading responsibilities if possible in advance of convenings. Plan for breaks and stick to them. Seek support from your own networks or from provided resources as needed. And then please alert our staff by emailing info@catruthandhealing.com as soon as possible if you have any concerns. We recognize that participants bring their entire selves and histories with them to the council, and that topics explored during the course of this work may stimulate emotions and thoughts that would benefit from accompaniment and support. Although trauma responses can come from a variety of sources and contexts, the council understands that those who have experienced disparate treatment due to their Native identities may specifically want to seek assistance related to historical trauma and related issues discussed with the council. Council staff will be providing supportive resources for participants to be available for the duration of the council's work. So today, what we're going to do is again go through an overview of the council and its charge so that folks can get up to speed on what the council does and what its scope is. We'll then talk about the regional meetings and the request for consultation that went out. And then we'll go into updates on the subcommittees and then open up for listening and discussion. We will pause at different points in time in case folks want to have more discussion. And then we'll come back to the presentation as needed. So what is the California Truth and Healing Council? The council is made up of representatives from California Native American tribes who are charged with bearing witness to, recording, examining existing documentation of, and receiving California Native American narratives to clarify the historical relationship between the state of California and Native Americans in the spirit of truth and healing. The council will submit a final written report of findings to the governor's office by 2025. The final report should reflect a holistic understanding of the historical relationship between California Native Americans and the state. And so really what this is seeking to do is have a report that is inclusive of and properly places the Native American experience in the context of our collective history here. Instead of having a history that is dominated by settlers and colonial folks. The final report may also make recommendations aimed at reparation and restoration and consider how to prevent similar depredations or policies in the future. And so that piece of it, we're thinking is going to look a bit like if you are familiar with the Canadian Truth and Reconciliation process and outcome documents, there are calls to action that they produced, which are basically specific policy recommendations with timelines and the intent is to have an outcome that accounts for some of the awfulness that's going to be under examination in this process. The council is organized under a charter and is made up of voting members and non-voting members. There are 12 voting members from each of the 4 regions with 1 seat for non-federally recognized designee in each region. And then each region also has an alternate voting member to ensure quorum for action. These are not representative seats. So for example, none of the members are have the authority to speak for the entirety of all tribes in their region. We're selected to increase regional and tribal diversity. And were selected at the nomination of California tribes, but are not, driving the narrative here. Really, the narrative is driven by the community. The council welcomes and encourages all available methods for public participation, and participants are encouraged to attend and observe all meetings of the council, submit written statements to the council, make oral statements and testimony to the council, participate in interactive dialogues, panel discussions, and informal meetings, organize and host affiliate events on issues relevant to the work of the council, and join the work of the subcommittees. This is just kind of a visual timeline. Right now, we're working with the council and the subcommittees to finalize state and third-party contracts to do some of this work, provide training and tools for the council and public to participate in this process, develop a draft strategic planning document, draft additional policies and procedures, build out subcommittee work and work product, and develop communications and web-based materials. In 2022, subject to COVID-19 constraints, the council will begin its regular quarterly meetings. And I'll have an update on that in just a moment. So beginning in March, the council will shift to a regular quarterly meeting schedule. Meetings will take place in different regions throughout the state and will take place over 2 days. Day 1 of each meeting will be dedicated to a talking and healing circle, with day 2 being a hearing style meeting. We also want to work with folks to develop programming around meetings and welcome anyone who would like to join some regional planning work groups. One of the things that we've been discussing internally is potentially building out a third day that's not necessarily part of the council, but is something that we would be affiliated with. And that would be kind of a historical walking tour of the specific area where that meeting is taking place. And part of this is inspired by, I met with an elected tribal official near the Sonoma Square, and there's a historical hike that he and other tribal leaders take in that area, and think that it could be really beneficial for the local community to join something like that and to see in real time and learn in real time some of the awfulness that happened in these places, especially juxtaposed with the way that these places are used in modern times, so that this history becomes living and real for folks in that area. So regional hearings, the council will likely meet in between regular meetings through regional hearings to increase opportunities for place-based testimonies and in-person engagement with the council. Regional hearings will likely be one day, with part of the day focused on testimonial and part of the day focused on site visits with local tribal communities. The programming around hearings, we also want to have regional planning work groups. So if you have something you're really excited to do in your area, please let us know, because we'd love to just start planning some of these out. All of these are going to be seasonally based. So we would prefer in places that get a bit of weather to do those meetings in the spring, fall, or late spring, summer, and early fall seasons. But we can have those conversations. Amplifying the council's reach in this way is going to get the council out to a lot more different communities, and also provide that regional diversity where the history is so different if you even just cross county lines. So what we'd like to do, and I think a stretch goal would be if we could have hearings in most of the counties in the state, given that they'll have different types of experiences. But again, it's really up to the community as to whether that's something that feels welcome. And also if there are ideas in those communities and places in those communities that we might be able to work with to be able to facilitate those hearings. And then in 2022, the council will hold regular meetings in March, June, September, and December. And then the council or regions will hold the regional hearings in May, August, and November, and then February in the next year. We can add some regional hearings depending on how they go and depending on interest. And so, these are kind of loose ideas about when we might do those, but the idea is that they'll be more testimonial style with also some build out of local resources. So if there are sites, museums, tribes, places of significance, that will be kind of built out around those hearings. And then the full quorum of the council would not be required. And we might just ask that some of the regional representatives attend in those spaces, or flip it in the event that we want regions to kind of get a flavor of different places and get that diversity of input. And then listening sessions will continue on a monthly basis with both virtual and in-person options. And we're interested in cadence and when this might work for folks. We will be kind of shifting to a hybrid office style. So I will be going out to a lot of places and be as COVID friendly as possible, and have those understandings on the front end. And then we will also have Loretta hosting some of the virtual listening sessions as well, so that we can kind of have a blend of getting out into the community to have those conversations with folks who are more comfortable in person. And then also being able to host these meetings for those who are more comfortable just getting on and having dinner with us. And then I also wanted to highlight that our partner that we have an engagement with to assist in getting philanthropic support is seeking a seasoned project manager with strong facilitation experience to support its work with the California Truth and Healing Council across narrative change and storytelling, philanthropy sector engagement, and the Healer Collaborative coordination. Here are all the links if you're interested. And I know that Decolonizing Wealth has gotten quite a few folks who are interested since this was posted. So if you are interested, I would get your letter of interest in and take a look at that site sooner rather than later. And then if you're a California Native American tribe, we're seeking to begin initial consultation meetings. Some of them we've already had via Zoom with the idea that we'd like to actually have some in-person convenings, and we're setting those up. Some are via Zoom, and it's tribes getting an idea of what this is and getting a sense of how they want to engage. But regardless, we are flexible about the method and mode of meetings, and meetings will be recorded and transcribed as the tribe is comfortable with. For the initial meetings, we're not recording and transcribing. It's really just kind of getting to know you and seeing how the tribe wants to engage and what their needs are to engage. And then when the tribe is comfortable, we will record and transcribe what the tribe wants to send as its submission for this council. So that's some clarity on that. Tribes can share as much or as little as they're comfortable with. And then outside of tribal consultation, the council and our office are available to meet with individuals, organizations, and groups at their request. So I'm going to go back because I want to go through. Well, let me pause and see if there are any comments at this time before I go through the consultation request. Any thoughts, comments, questions? And feel free to introduce yourself or add, local tours are a great idea. If you have ideas about different types of things we could do, we are very open to it. And then there's some info from Robert as well. Okay. Hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and go through the consultation request so that everyone can get an idea of the questions that we're asking. We will post this for the general public and the community as well. But this has gone out to all of the tribes on the NAHC contact list, and they have until the end of January to respond. That's a soft deadline if folks need more time because of the holidays and because of getting back up to full operation after the holidays. We're happy to extend that, but want to just make sure that we're getting that input in sooner, and also that we don't want to jam people over the holidays. So very much are okay with people just letting us know that they're going to send something, but they just need a bit more time. So I'm going to share the questions that we have posed to the tribes. Hold on. I'm gonna need 2 more seconds. Just so I can figure out. Okay. Okay. Can you see that okay?
Yep, we can see it.
Great. So the council is at a critical point in its work and seeks additional guidance from your tribe to assist you in developing recommendations responsive to this request for consultation. Below is a non-exclusive list of questions that will help the council better understand the needs and priorities of your tribe. And just for clarity for the community, we've had a couple of rounds of consultation to help shape how this council will operate, what should be in the charter, how many people should be on, and those types of questions. But this is, again, seeking more clarity now that the council is in a place to kind of deploy and move forward. And we'll be doing this frequently throughout the process of the council, just so that we're making sure that things are going in the right direction. So what are the current needs and priorities of your tribe in engaging with this work? Please list and describe all financial, ideological, and conceptual or emotional and spiritual needs and priorities. And this is really to get at, we do have some funding that's going to be available for communities. And so want to understand what are the things that are most critical, because that will help inform the scoring mechanism for those funds. And then also with the ideological and conceptual, if there are things that are completely non-starters and it's going to just be incredibly problematic if we explore it, we'd love to know that as well. And then with emotional and spiritual needs and priorities, our partner is pulling together a healer collaborative from California, which includes folks that have background in historical trauma and have done some of this kind of work. And so we'd just like to better understand how best to assist your tribe. Would your tribe or tribal community like to be able to attend the meetings? And again, this is part of figuring out how much resourcing should go to those kind of priorities like travel. If so, does your tribe or tribal community have existing resources to be able to travel to in-person meetings? If COVID measures are still in place, does your tribe and tribal community have the ability to join via the internet? And if not, what resources does your tribe or tribal community need to be able to do so? How would your tribe like to submit information, historical records, or documentation to the council? Does your tribe have existing digitized records, or will you need assistance in gathering records for this initiative? And again, this is getting an idea of what kind of resources would be helpful for your tribe to have, but then also if there are any academic partnerships or fellowships that we can be helping facilitate to get your tribe some of this research assistance, it would be helpful for us to understand kind of the whole world of what we're looking at here. And if you need assistance, what kind of assistance is your tribe seeking? Is it researching, digitizing, recording, etc.? If you have documents in your care, what is the status of the historical records or documents in your care? Does your tribe have an elders program? If so, would the elders program like to participate in a pilot program to gather first-person narratives via audio or video recording? And this is something our elders council is particularly interested in, is making sure that we are getting those narratives, those stories, those experiences from Native elders so that they can be part of this record, but also be preserved for future generations as well. And the council has established a youth council subcommittee and is looking to create a youth council. Does your tribe have a youth program? And if so, would the youth program be interested in partnering with the council? Has your tribe engaged in similar work or have existing materials that could be made available to the council, Native community, or the public? Part of this is we're trying to get an idea of what has been done, what has worked, what hasn't worked, and if there are things that can just be incorporated into this work, this council, I think, would be open to doing so. What do you hope the council will achieve through this process? And what result will be most useful for tribal governments and California Native Americans? What does success look like for this council, and what deliverables should the council be aiming for? And this is a higher level conceptual question where I don't think the council wants to get to the end of this process and have something that doesn't feel useful to tribal communities. And so really understanding what's going to be the most useful from your perspective is going to be incredibly helpful for this process to modify to be workable for all of you. And where are the areas and locations of historical significance in your region? And where would your tribe recommend the council hold a quarterly meeting? And this question, sorry, I need to close my door real quick. Sorry about that. So this piece is really not trying to ask questions about where your cultural resources are and your sacred sites. It's really more about, are there areas that it would be helpful for the greater population, for Californians generally, to be aware that something happened there, either, you know, positive for your community or negative for your community. And then also, if there are places where you recommend holding a quarterly meeting because of its significance, like either it's your ancestral land and now it's, you know, it's now a park or something. And so it's kind of also like centering what happened here in that place-based reality. Other options we've heard are places where treaties that went unratified were signed. And then just even places that feel like they're healing spaces for the community. Are there trusted partners in your region that you recommend the council engage with in planning a regional meeting? And part of this is that if there are current mechanisms, current groups that are doing similar work, again, I don't think the council wants to reinvent the wheel, and where there are things that are working and that are logical convening places for California Native people and the community, the council would love to kind of tee off of that or partner with that. And then would your tribe or designee like to assist with planning meetings or hearings in your region? Are there particular instances in the history of your tribe or Native Americans in your region that should be included in the record for completeness? And so part of this is that we know that every region has different instances and every tribe has different instances that it focuses on as being particularly egregious, or particularly this is the thing that really affected our community in an awful way, and that needs to be included. And if it's not included, we won't consider this to have integrity or value. We want to hear about that. We want to be able to, in this final product, whether it's a digital asset that's, you know, available online and is kind of a living, evolving report, or whether it's even on paper or whether it's something else, we'd like to make sure that those points are highlighted to make so that people know that those are things that are significant to your tribe. And then would your tribe prefer that the final record of the council reflect 1, only Native American primary sources, or 2, Native and non-Native primary sources as recommended and endorsed by California Native American tribes, or something else? Really, we're going to need to understand what each tribe's preference is. And I think it would be my recommendation to the council that we incorporate whatever is the tribe's preference. But again, this is going to be something that the council will have to think through in how it wants to center Native voices, or how it wants to juxtapose Native and non-Native primary sources, so that there's also kind of in that gap is information. And then are there experts, elders, or community members that your tribe trusts to assist the council in representing the story of your region or community that the council should ask for ongoing assistance from? And if so, please send us your recommendations. And this is really because we are seeking, I'm gonna stop my share. We are seeking to create a sort of advisory body for the council, which is both issue area specific or regional specific. And we want it to be at the recommendation of California tribes and Native peoples. And so if there's someone that you know of that has a particular background in, you know, ancestral water use or ancestral lands, or, you know, the 18 treaties or anything like that, I think we would be happy to place someone on advisory council for this council or advisory body for this council, so that it can both help inform and edit that document or that final report or that final living digital asset. And then also if there's folks that, like, if they're not included, this is just not going to be a good report, we want to hear about that as well. So I'm going to pause. And I see that there's some comments. Great. Victoria, would you like to speak?
Sorry, yes, I do want to ask a question. In regards to the media, what is the intent for the media? It seems like there's going to be some documenting of the elders. And I'm just trying, as a film, I work in the film industry, and I'm curious what's the purpose of that content and what's going to happen with that.
Sure. So there's a couple of different elements. So the Decolonizing Wealth Project, who's our funding or philanthropy partner, and also is going to be creating a documentary type product. So they're talking to a couple of different filmmakers about who might be appropriate for this work. And they'll be following the council itself as it goes through this. So like following regional meetings, going into some of the spaces. And if there are particularly impactful community first person narratives, capturing those narratives as well to be part of like a bigger documentary project, which can either be a film or vignettes. The part with the elders can be incorporated into that, or what we're thinking is that it will be incorporated into that final digital asset, which will look more like kind of like StoryCorps. And so there'll be like little, blurbs online of, this piece, and then the full documentary or the full narrative will be available for folks to be able to navigate as well.
Thank you.
And just for clarity too, we are working on how to capture these narratives, both in a way where they don't have to be shared to the public upon request, or they do have to be shared. And so we're hoping to give folks an option on the front end based on what they want to do with that, whether they want it to be out there for like the public to like for posterity, and so that anyone can access it whenever, and that it'll be held like in perpetuity by a public agency. They can do that, but we're trying to also have an option so that if they didn't want to do that, but they wanted to record it for posterity for their tribe, for example, and for their family, they could be able to go to an option where they wouldn't have to, have it be publicly available. We're fairly certain that where tribes are submitting recordings that we can shield those from Public Record Act disclosure regardless because of consultation protections, but where it's just elders speaking, it's a bit fudgier. So we're trying to set up a couple of different mechanisms.
I would like to assist with that aspect if possible.
That's great. We will have Michael reach out to you to set up a time to chat, if that's okay with you. Great. And one thing we're trying to do, at least with the elders and possibly with the larger group, is have options similar to how StoryCorps does it, where either we can come out and help capture those videos, or we can give you what you need to be able to capture those videos. So interview questions, recommended recording type of thing, and have kind of a hybrid, especially given the fact that COVID hasn't really gone anywhere. So we want to make sure that we're not putting people at risk. That reminds me, because I didn't mention it, we're in a space where it looks like the waivers for public meeting rules and open meeting rules are going to be expiring at the end of January. So this council will be meeting virtually in January, but will need to be meeting in compliance with, or will likely need to be meeting in compliance with open meeting laws after that point in time. So for the March meeting, we are anticipating that that will be an in-person meeting, with the idea that we will be, creating as much streaming and internet availability as possible for folks that do not want to be around people. And we're going to do an outdoor type of convening as well. Other thoughts, comments, discussion, questions? Did you have another question, Victoria? Go ahead.
I did, sorry. I just, I wasn't clear, but I don't want to assume. Is that when you're saying tribes, are we also seeking out the non-recognized tribes? Okay, that's what I was asking. And there's some intricacies with that, but I don't know how that's going to be handled because I know one particular tribe in my area is fractured, I think, with 5 different groups. So
yeah, so our charge is to consult with all of the tribes on the NHC contact list. So that's 171. So that's going to be fun. It will actually be super fun. It's but we do know too that there are groups that don't apply to be on that list because they don't want to, or they don't, think it's valid. So we're open to meeting with those groups too. We just have some limitations on Public Records Act stuff because of it, but we are open and willing to meet with all tribes regardless of list status. Other comments, questions? And then even that point you just made about groups being fractured and splintered, that too, I think is important for this council to understand kind of how that happens, just because that's, I think, a part of all of this history that is trying to be addressed. And if we're trying to have collective community healing, we need to think about all of that. Other thoughts, comments, questions?
And I just, again, want to echo thanks for you volunteering to help us with the media aspect. This is really a community-driven initiative. And so we really do need everyone's expertise and help to make this really a meaningful project. And never apologize for speaking. This is your point. This is your time to shine. We definitely love all the input that we receive, and it's very helpful. So thank you.
Okay, if there are, Victoria, are you still raising your hand or you're, okay. So we can go into some of the updates from the subcommittees. And Loretta, I may need your help on this. The education subcommittee, have they convened this month?
The education subcommittee has not convened this month. I do know that the subcommittee is looking for folks to join the subcommittee. And so if you are interested, and we do know, Robert Levi, that you are interested in joining the subcommittee, please reach out to us. I think we have 2 council members on there, but can definitely use some more folks on the subcommittee. I believe we discussed having a specific listening session for education, and we'll most likely discuss that during our next subcommittee meeting, but that's about all the updates I have on that.
Okay, Loretta, fine. I'm in. I'm in. I was just wondering what was going to happen, but that's fine. I'll help you guys as much as I can. Thank you.
Help us already so much. So thank you.
Oh, no
You're
problem.
basically staff in our office now.
Good Lord. Well, good. We'll get the ball running in terms of education, keep everybody informed of what's happening with James Ramos and the legislative part in my wife and I with the Teachers Association. And then also we're trying to get into the, curriculum. She's right here.
The curriculum.
Quality. IQ Instructional Quality Commission, which reviews all the curriculum that goes into the California Department of Education. So we have allies that will get that AB 1554 going, and plus support, from different organizations, and especially, on the council, if you could, get that. I put that link in there for the 2 petitions. Just I'm not that tech savvy. Just go on that link and see if it pops up. There should be 2 petitions on there. Again, one for the Assembly and another one for the California Teachers Association. And the more James Ramos gets, the better off we all become in terms of getting that piece of legislation passed and a part of the curriculum for the state of California. So again, yeah, just keep me. I'll keep on doing my thing down here and keep you guys informed of what's happening. And I've been also dropping Truth and Healing and all the meetings I've had down here, which I had 4 today. But every time I'm telling you, you got to have get in contact with Truth and Healing. So thank you guys again, and I'm humbled and just ready to get going on this education part. So thank you.
Thank you, Robert. And as a reminder, the Education Subcommittee was created to do 2 things. It was to look at, and I think that they're going to be looking at that, what that charges to, but it's to look at the state of education for California Native kids, and then also the state of curriculum that teaches about Native people. So right now, I think they're also thinking about the process for adding more people to that committee, and whether they add them as non-voting members of the council or whether they add them as, just community members. So there's a little bit that they're trying to think through. Radley, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I wanted to, while you were talking on that part on education, there's been circles in the past that brought folks together to talk about that California curriculum. At least when the meeting I was at a while back, about 20 years ago, it seems like this committee meets every 10 years, or there's something about how this one particular group meets the credentialing folks on curriculum. And at that time we were looking at, I was invited to a meeting looking at the 4th grade curriculum, and because there was some requirement, and which still does happen, by the way, in 4th grade, where many of the classes will have kids build missions, or they talk about Ishi. Anyway, but from that meeting, there was just a lot of, they brought a lot of us together, and it was, we went to the Capitol. One of the facilitators was 7th Generation Fund, Chris Peters. Andy Andrioli, he was facilitating. He was retired at the time, but he was helping with the facilitation at the state. And one of the, I don't remember the professor's name, but I know that, I don't remember his name right now, but he was helping write stuff. But I don't know what came of it, but there was a lot of, they brought people from all over California, Southern, Central, Northern California. I was one of those people. And, but I wonder where those notes are. I mean, maybe that would be, I guess I'm suggesting for the education committee, if you already haven't thought of it, is to, what other stuff has been done that you could review that could help while you're looking at this, that what other elders that were part of that circle who aren't alive anymore, they really had some really good thoughts in there. And maybe it was too much for people back then, but today it fits, So I don't know who you talked to. Chris Peters was one. I know that the 7th Generation Fund over in Arcata, he's still there. So, he may know, because it seems like he was there, that they were definitely part of the facilitation of bringing folks together. But, and I don't know what other circles, Lois Risling was there too, or she was part of another thing that we at DQ University, we met. Suzanne Schoenharjo came. I think we might have been talking about stereotypes or something, but that was a while back too. But they brought a lot of educators together and traditional people in California. They facilitated it. And I just felt like, man, you know, now today it's like, I'd like to see the minutes or the notes of that. So, you know, so the education committee, if they could maybe look at what's been done to find out what's available that's been done by some of our leaders back then that maybe didn't make it to any state level or any, you know, I don't know if what it changed or not. I'm not part of that process, but it did happen.
Yeah, those
So I just
notes might
wanted
be at UC Davis or at Sac State. And I know Ed Castillo, a fellow CUYA member, was up here doing a curriculum about 10 years ago.
Is that Castillo?
Yeah, he's a relative. Everybody's related down here to me, even Loretta. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, I'm not speaking, but you know, it sounds like a good idea. But again, you know, what makes a difference 10 years later is that we have political education, and within the education system of the state of California itself, we have those allies. And again, hopefully we'll get more Indian educators on board to help us look into curriculum. I mean, my wife and I are writing curriculum right now, and she's a 4th grade teacher and is dealing with that Mission Indian curriculum, trying to get rid of that. And I'm dealing with high school. I just did finishing lesson plans on the Indian Citizenship Act of 24. And then I'm looking into making another lesson plan for junior high, middle school Indian students about using comics, graphic novels as a starting point. And again, looking at ethnic studies, you know, we're also developing curriculum for the Native American portion of ethnic studies. And then what we're writing right now, hopefully we can use in that California Indian history as we push AB 1554 through. But, you know, hopefully, you know, the big cheeses on the education committee, you know, we'll look into that. But if it's Ed Castillo, I think he wasn't feeling too good last year, but I'll see if I can track him down through relatives. So thank you.
And we will also follow up a bit too. So we know quite a few of those people. So maybe we can just jog their memories and see if they remember that convening. And we are in touch with the Barbareño Ventureño band. I got a direct message, sorry. But we also would like to, if all of you also have contacts that you think should be in these meetings, we would love to have you have them come to these. And I think really this is kind of the forum where we get a lot of the community input, not all of it. So don't freak out that we're only listening to like 15 people, but we do like to have this you know, direct community engagement. And that's why we continue to make ourselves available on a monthly basis, and we'll continue to do so. But if there are places too where you'd like to have a listening session, we're going to be planning those out, not for January, but probably for like starting in February or March for in-person listening sessions as well. So if there are community convenings that where it makes sense already to join, we are willing and able to come to those as well. Any other thoughts, comments, questions? And then before I forget, for some of the folks on here that weren't on here on Monday, California Indian Nations College is looking right now for, they're hiring in administrative capacity, but they're also looking for adjunct professors. So if there's anybody who has a particular expertise, they are looking for more professors. So would be great to get your resumes in. And then up here, the tribal college in Woodland is looking for board members from California tribes. So if folks are interested in that, I would contact that college as well and then work with your tribe to get a nomination. Additional comments, questions, feedback? Okay, we'll move to the next subcommittee. The deliverables subcommittee. So that subcommittee hasn't yet met. What we're trying to do is create a mechanism for them to do the deliverables and be responsive. What that was created for was sort of for that call to action piece where they want to make sure that this council actually has some real tangible deliverables at the conclusion. And so what we're doing for them right now is sorting through different commitments that we have made, that they have made, and then other things that the community has asked them to do, so that they can start vetting whether those recommendations should be pursued, or whether they should be looked more into to see how they might work, and then kind of sorting out how that works. They'll also be working with us on that draft strategic plan document to make sure that we're kind of pacing out the work of this council so that everybody has an idea of how we're going to move forward. And so that is in process right now. So we'll engage with them probably in January to get kind of all of that in front of them and they can think about how they want to move forward. The Elders Subcommittee, Councilmember Harper, would you like to give an update or would you like me to give a quick update?
We didn't meet this month, but we are looking for anyone who would like to assist us. And I don't know if you can expand, Christina or Loretta.
Sure. You want to jump in, Loretta? I will jump in then. So the Elders Subcommittee is, and don't tell the other subcommittees this, but it's by far my favorite subcommittee. And it's the Elders Council basically for this council. And what they're really looking for are more regional representation who can either be from the council itself or from not the council. It might make more sense for people who are not already seated on the council to join because then there's not weird issues with open meetings. But currently it's Councilmember Harper and Councilmember oh my gosh.
Lucas,
thank you. And,
Lucas, yeah.
and the two of them think through some of the things they'd like to see in terms of highlighting elders, but are also serving as kind of a almost advisory council on some of the things that this council is looking to do. We know that our elders have been there and seen it. And so we want to make sure that we're relying on them as we kind of move forward on different initiatives. Because we have issues where like Councilmember Lucas will say, well, like, this happened 30 years ago. And we want to make sure that we're not just kind of retreading the same work, or that we're not, making missteps where something didn't work. So if you have ideas about elders that would be helpful on that committee, we'd love to hear from them. And then the Elders Committee is also, again, looking for if you have an elders council, it can be intertribal, it can be just your tribe that already has kind of a trusted community, a trusted group of people that it works with. We'd love to have kind of a pilot project with that Elders Council to do some of those recordings. And whether it's that we come and work with that group or whether we send whoever works with that group already some of the materials that we'd like them to be discussing with those elders. We kind of just want to get a feel for how this can work and will it work. And if anybody has anyone who's willing and ready to do that, we'd love to hear from you. Am I missing anything on elders?
No, you got it right, Christina. Thank you.
Great.
we do have a question in the chat about age requirements for the elder subcommittee, and we don't have like a definition of what is an elder. So we're really interested in hearing that from the community. Same with youth too. We're interested in hearing what that is, because we don't want to put parameters on it. This is community driven. So if you have suggestions, please let us know.
Something I will say in response to that is someone I very much love and respect was asking me why I didn't push back on someone. And I said, well, they're an elder. There's no, like, I can't do that. You know, that's just like not going to happen ever because of how, you know, this community works. And she told me, well, you know, there's elders and there's old people. And so I think the community decides who gets to be an elder and who gets to be an old person, and we'll defer to that. But yes, would love to hear from you how we should be defining it. I prefer to have people self-define it, but and I think there's some people who would be offended if we called them elders. So we'll just leave it at that. Any other comments, questions, concerns at this time? Okay. Funding partnerships. So we had a pretty extensive overview of the funding partnership engagement that we have with Decolonizing Wealth Project in our last full meeting of the business meeting of the council. So if folks are interested, you can go to that, or we can actually put that presentation online. I don't think that's a huge deal. They're going to have some more extensive updates after they meet with the funding subcommittee, because I don't want to get ahead of them. But it looks like there is going to be funds available for a community fund to help folks engage with this work. There's going to be some funds for that Healer collaborative. And then what we're going to want to talk to the funding subcommittee about, we're meeting, I want to say Monday, is thinking through whether we start off with kind of dividing funds between funds to do this work versus funds to do reparative restorative action, or whether we kind of are getting ahead of ourselves by doing that. And so the plus side is there is money to play around with. So that's a good thing. And it's very exciting that we have that philanthropic support so early in this process. So that's very exciting. And as I mentioned, they are hiring that project manager who will be working with me and Loretta and Kathleen, who's our philanthropic engagement and private partnerships advisor in the governor's office, to make sure that we're getting those opportunities to get funding out to the community to engage in this critical work, and that we're also getting funding to do that restorative and reparative work, so that we have this like all-in community healing effort where people don't just say, well, that was 200 years ago and I wasn't here. I mean, it's ongoing, and we want to make sure that people have opportunities to be accountable. And then anything else on that, Loretta? That's okay to share.
Good.
Okay,
good. I put the link to the job posting on here. If you didn't catch it on the slide earlier, it's posted on Decolonizing Wealth Project's website.
Awesome. So great. So they'll be moving forward with the funding partnerships subcommittee to think about how to deploy that funding. And then the Youth Council. The Youth Council is in the process of getting together a virtual event for youth to have kind of a kickoff. But if anybody has existing youth events or youth convenings, we'd love to just do a drop-in and chat with them. I think we'd just like to get a sense of where they're at and what their thinking is on all of this work, and where they, you know, might want to plug in or might find it most useful for them to plug in. So please, you know, where there are opportunities to engage with your Native youth, we would love to just have those chats.
And again, the same question is, you know, what is a youth? And I think that's something that we envision addressing at that youth kickoff event, like a larger convening, and actually ask the youth, because we're not that young. So I think we want to get the input from the youth. And we do have Councilmember Horkus and Elliot Santos on, and they are both on the youth subcommittee. So if you guys have questions that you want to ask, feel free, or anything to add that we might have missed.
I think we're just looking forward to engaging with the youth, like you said, getting their input. And I also look forward to a time where we can have the youth committee and the elders committee come together, because I think that would be a super awesome event. Thank you.
My secret, now not so secret, and I probably talked about it before, plan is to have even kind of a grant program or some sort of program where the youth are tasked with capturing those stories from their elders, so that you then also facilitate that cross-cultural transmission or cross-generational cultural transmission. So TBD on that. Bradley, did you have something you wanted to say? Okay. Thought you might have raised your hand, so I wanted to just make sure. Great. So we're very excited to move forward with the youth, and again, just have lots and lots of ideas about what we want to do and engage some of the folks from reservation dogs and all of that as soon as we can get our youth together and think through what would be most exciting for them to do. And then the Academic Partnerships Subcommittee, I believe, is finalizing their kind of scope. And once they have what their scope is, they are also meeting in the near future with, in the early, like first quarter of next year, with state libraries, state parks, and the state archives to take a look at what the existing collections are there, to figure out, you know, at least for the state collections, what additional support could be used for research and the like. But then separately are thinking through how they want to approach academic partnerships. We've had a couple of conversations with different institutions like the Autry, where they do have a lot of mission records. They have a lot of research at their disposal and are kind of just like ready and waiting to engage. And so we kind of want to get together a more coherent process about how that happens and how they're aligned with this council, or whether it's, you know, separate but on the same parallel track. So that's TBD as well. And then once this, the academic partnerships also has their kind of focus together, they'll be reaching out to a group of California Native academics to kind of figure out who might be interested in staffing some of this kind of work. Ken, did you have a comment?
Yes, the academic council, who's on this council?
So the academic subcommittee is Council Member Kessler Mata, Council Member Phelps, and Council Member
Burris. It's Council Member Burris.
Thank you, Michael. Sorry, I'm trying to work from my brain and it's not doing so hot. So it's 3 of our council members who are all in academia. And so they're just trying to think about how they want to bring in more folks for that.
When you say bring in outside groups to work with them on at the state library?
Not necessarily. It's more like bringing in outside groups to do some of the research. And so none of the council members are expected to do the work of the council. They're here to kind of guide that process. And so they're thinking about how they want to engage, what kind of groups they want to engage, what the preferences might be, you know, whether it's, you know, California Native versus non, you know, that type of thing. And then once they have those mechanisms, that'll help our staff figure out how to create those partnerships to get that work done.
Okay, so you have outside groups doing the work for California Indians at the state level. That's kind of interesting because for me, you know, I've already been to the state library. I've researched, you know, especially the 1856, you know, the genocide. You know, that's basically where the governor got this whole ball rolling because he read that book. Hopefully nothing will be kept out because, you know, 1856 was very important to California Indians all through California. And that's where I found a lot of documents 100, 250 pages just on the expedition that was done to my area. So it's really interesting to see all the paperwork, you know, Mariposa, Northern California, you know, all the petticoats, as they call them, or the beginning of the, what do they call it? The state, the guards, the National Guards. So that's where I'm interested at, in those areas, because, you know, we're talking about truth and healing, and, you know, we've been subject to a lot of pain, you know, even today, because we're not part of a so-called fairly recognized tribe. But then, you know, it gets back to who's trying to work with us. The state is. It goes right back to what can the state do for us? You know, 1924 was a very important year for us. We became supposedly citizens, you know, under the voting rights. But then we also don't fall under the Religious Act because we're not fairly recognized. So the state needs to be a little bit more open to open these doors for us for state recognition. You know, give us a say so when the feds are divvying up the money down to the state. We have a say so. No, I'll keep pushing the state recognition. This is very important because federal recognition is, as you know from Native American Heritage Commission, we're creating a new criteria. We fit all those, but then, you know, it takes millions of dollars to get recognized nowadays. Tens, you know, $20 million. But yeah, I just interested at the state level because there's a lot of information the state did to California Indians. But is there any way I could be on this board or committee, or because I'd like to know firsthand, not something that's fed to me from other resources. Because I've had that with ethnographic studies. A lot of them just don't explain the whole picture. And I like to have the whole picture. You know, I have to go into manuscripts and such. You know, oh, there's nothing there. Get into the manuscripts and you'll see exactly notebooks, you know, that were done by the person that grave robbed us. I know I'm on time limit, but I just wanted to let you know that I'm very interested in the state archives and also, you know, the federal archives. Hopefully we can get something going at the federal level too. So thank you for your time. Thank you.
We appreciate it. And we will keep you posted on how that evolves. I know that, or I think that the intent is to have that final digital asset be primary source materials. So it is going to be the actual documents that we're hoping to have digitized and very easy to link out. So we'll keep you all posted. We are a bit past time. So I'm going to have one last comment from Dee Dee.
I don't want to repeat what Ken says, but I do wholeheartedly agree with him. One of the things I would like to do is have access to all the research material myself, because it has been very hard to find it, has been very limited for us. And I do agree that as a non-federally recognized tribe, we are often, I won't say, well, I will say it. We are often put on the back burner for a lot of different things. We get kind of left to the side and, oh, if we have time, we'll get to you. And, you know, I'm really tired of feeling that way. And that is going to have to be one of the major parts of this healing. You know, if nothing more, we know we probably will never get federally recognized, but a state recognition would be something. You know, we participate in all these groups. I've been there with Robert Levi, in fact, probably before Robert Levi on this Riverside School District thing. We've been out there. We are not a recognized tribe. We have no money. We just do things the best we can on our own dime. And we're always out there. We're always working. We're working hard. We've revitalized our language on our own with no help, getting things here and there where we can, you know, and the research is not easy, but with getting some access to more records and more things, you know, we need that help. And yeah, I would like to be part of that. You know, they listen to the academia. They always talk about the academics, but you know what? We have it in our heart. We have the passion and we have the determination. And that's what's kept our tribe going. We teach our children, we teach our grandchildren and our great grandchildren. They know our songs, they know our history, and we pass it on. And we're not relying on a book that somebody's read or what they've been taught in school. You know, we live our life. We walk that road every day of our lives. And, you know, that's what's important, what they can be taught, what our youth can be taught, you know, and it's, you know, showing them and teaching them. And I think that's the important thing. And we need, you know, we don't have those college degrees and stuff, but we've learned, we have life's lessons. And, you know, we don't want that to be forgotten either. So, like I said, I just want to agree with what Ken said. And I don't want to take up more time either, but, you know, I'm just honored to have been part of this group. And I'm glad somebody's finally listening to us. Thank you.
Thank you. We very much appreciate that comment. And as I've mentioned before, when sometimes Councilmember Lucas chats on recording, that was really well said. And we may reach out to see if we can use it for something. But I think one piece that I do want to highlight, just based on those comments, is that the Academic Partnerships Committee is going to be looking at academic partnerships to bring together all of the resources that already exist. But what we're trying to get to is a sense of what kind of additional research or just even compiling of your own oral histories, records, all of that tribes need from their own, you know, on their own, because I think the goal of this whole project is to center those stories and those narratives. And so where your tribe has oral histories, has that kind of rich knowledge that you want to, or you need help researching your own histories, that's what we'd really love to hear so that we can help fund some of that from the council. Okie doke. Well, with that, we are a little bit over. So if any of the council members has any final words, please feel free to jump in now. Seems like everybody's good. Okay, well, very much appreciate all your time. This was a wonderful discussion, and we are only an email or a phone call away if any of you would like to follow up on some of these conversations. We hope you have a restful New Year, holiday season, or non-holidays if you don't celebrate, and just very much appreciate your input and time. If you have messages that you'd like to submit to us, please feel free to submit them to the info@catruthandhealing.com. And or if you'd like to chat, feel free to send a request to meet with us there too. So thank you all and take care.